much larger scale platforms to work with China, India, Brazil, South Africa, Mexico, on things like rehabilitating dirty coal-fired power plant, and perhaps now looking as well a little bit more weight this year on deforestation and how to get large-scale pilot programs underway at a country level that look at reversing the trends on deforestation, which China has already shown can be done. China is already reforesting on a net basis, but other countries, Brazil, Indonesia, for example, are still losing a lot of their tropical forest each year, and that doesn't have to happen. There are ways of changing the incentives there fairly quickly. So although we need to put a lot of emphasis on the negotiations, and we do need to work towards an agreement that gives us a sort of pathway over the next 20, 30, 40 years, there are things that we can do. And the EU ETS, for example, by giving strong signals about the way it will carry on beyond 2012, even ahead of a sort of broader Kyoto-type agreement, can get things moving now, and that is what we need, I think.
Hugh Elliott, formerly in the Embassy in Paris, now on secondment to Anglo-American, incidentally one of the world's largest private coal producers. Just an observation, really, and I suspect from having been in a post where it was, although at a political level, very supportive of what you were doing and of the report, and had a similar sort of process itself, at a public perception level, and I imagine this is the case in many countries around the world, this just does not begin to enter the threshold of debate in the way that it is very strikingly for somebody who's been overseas for several years and come back to the UK. How are you going to actually, in the speed with which your assumptions, your optimistic assumptions about being able to achieve what you hope can be achieved, state, how are you going to transform a global debate? First question. Second question, from the private sector point of view, it does, in my very limited experience, but it looks as though government is uncertain. It looks as though the signals aren't there at the moment. I mean, we have various projects that we're involved with. We're involved with, as a partner in FutureGen, which the British government isn't, interestingly. We have got a coal-to-liquids project, joint venture with Shell in Australia, which is a very, with capture, carbon capture and sequestration. But that's very, very difficult and long-term projects to take forward, and they're only just beginning. And the timescale, going back to what Siobhan was saying, the timescales strike me as extraordinarily optimistic for achieving what you say are going to be achieved. I wonder if you could comment on those two interlinked observations.
No one person can single-handedly alert and explain and discuss with every country in the world. We'll be doing our bit. Sue Lin and Siobhan and I are on the road for a fair bit of the next 3 months, and we may be calling somewhere near you. But we're trying to, by doing the report and sharing it, making it available, speaking about it, and asking you to help in that process, we're trying to push that story of understanding along. It did have a coverage which amazed us, actually, because we didn't have any PR machine. So that, I think, is a measure of the way in which the tide of opinion is starting to move. So I do think there's something there to catch, as it were. And it's something that we all have to share in. But will it be done instantly by magic? Will it be the first thing? It wasn't the first thing in the US elections, which are just over. But you could imagine in the presidential elections 2 years from now that you could have two candidates who take the issue very seriously. I mean, McCain and Clinton. I mean, for all I know, it'll be two completely different candidates, but just as an example, there are two candidates that take that seriously. It's obviously taken very seriously in California. So, and I gave the examples of China where it's starting to be taken much more seriously. So I think the debate's moving, but can it be transformed quickly enough for action, given the complexities of international action? I don't know. When I said I was optimistic, in the sense, I was optimistic in this rather particular sense, that we more or less understand what we have to do, we more or less understand the risks, we more or less understand that we have to get on with it in the next 10, 15 years, and that if we wanted to, we could. Now, that, in that sense, I'm optimistic.